What are you doing in my living room, weirdo? But even if you are a weirdo, you're my favorite weirdo. Welcome back. Did you drink water today? I hope you did. If not, pause and drink some water right now. Plus, you might as well get a drink, because in this video, we're going to be talking about a plethora of things, though I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet. And this one, since it was supposed to be filmed in a different location, I am winging it. There is no script, so again, I might ramble. But today, we're going to be talking about graveyards, cemeteries, dirt, and witchcraft. So like I said, for this video, I had it in my head and I was going to go film at one of the cemeteries around here. So I tried 2 different cemeteries, and I tried like the retired cemeteries, like cemeteries that are over 100 years old, which are very common here in New England. And each one that I went to, there was someone walking their dog or just walking around doing laps, just, you know, enjoying the peacefulness. And here I am with like tripods and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'll wait for them to leave and then I'll try and film. And some never left, and then other people showed up, so then I tried another one, and it was the same thing, so we're just gonna have to do it from my living room. But I got my graveyard shirt on, so... Does this count? Alright, let's go into it. I'm gonna sit on my love seat and keep Sass company, though, real quick, so we're gonna change angles. So, like I said, today's video was supposed to take place in a cemetery. So, I'll start with the basics first. What's the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard? I know this isn't like a knock-knock joke. I know I worded it like that. I'm really sorry. I said it before in one of my other videos, but a cemetery is something that is standalone, while a graveyard is attached to a church. So you can remember it as like, a graveyard is attached to a great church, if that kind of makes any sense. Now, cemeteries and graveyards and witchcraft seem to go hand in hand, along as it does with like many magical practices. And why is this? A lot of witches do use a lot of spirit work, and with that spirit work comes the collection of graveyard dirt. I am sure you have heard of this before. What exactly is graveyard dirt? Is it actually dirt from a graveyard? Now, dirt magic and witchcraft go hand in hand. I feel like a lot of people sleep on dirt magic. I've said this before, dirt magic is incredibly powerful, and I love dirt magic, but I'm also very, like I said, nature-based. So a lot of people will collect dirt from graveyards or cemeteries, anywhere where there are people buried, to use in their spells for protection, to binding, to love magic, to justice magic, to protection magic, to curses. Like a lot of people get conflicted on the whole entire like hang up of graveyard dirt or cemetery dirt. And they think that they need it, and they'll go to recent graves of people and take dirt from other people's loved ones, which can make some people feel uncomfortable, which I don't blame them. I would feel a little weirded out if I went to go see a family member, and because of their status, someone was kind of like digging at their grave. If I didn't know what was happening and I just saw it, even though I am a witch, you're still kind of like, what are you doing? So that is completely understandable. Graveyard dirt isn't a new thing, by the way. I feel like everything I say always starts with like the ancient Egyptians, but the ancient Egyptians did used to use the sand from like their burials and where their dead would be buried and actually use it and make it into their pottery and everything else. There are actually some places overseas, I think it's in like Scotland, where there are graves of saints, and in the graves of the saints there are little doors that go into the area of where they're buried. That way people could actually reach in through the door and take the soil from where they're buried, because it's believed to be holy. And I think that started in like the 1200s, I think. Don't quote me on that. Again, I'm going from the top of my head because I was like, once I'm in the cemetery, this is all going to come natural because I have everything around. But instead, I have my Halloween decorations. And in a lot of Christian burials, they'll throw the dirt on top of the casket as that symbolization of like of dust to dust. We come, you know, from the earth, we return back to the earth. I believe in Jewish traditions, it's either like 3 spoonfuls or 13 spadefuls of soil that they put in instead of like a handful of dirt. I'm trying to remember. Maybe I should have scripted this video, I'm so sorry. But anyway, sometimes that graveyard dirt that you buy like in stores, sometimes that isn't even real dirt, or dirt from a graveyard at least. And before we go into like actual graveyard dirt, like dirt physically taken from a graveyard, let's go into like basically what you could find in a lot of stores. Not all stores, but some. And that's actually herbs mixed in with regular soil. More commonly, patchouli. Now, patchouli is also known as graveyard dirt. that is like the other name for patchouli, because of like its like wet soil, earthy, musky smell, and how it's like an earth element. Because it's so grounding, when we have an herb that is severely grounding, like this one and the other one that I'll mention real quick, it makes a more stable environment. In that meditative state, it's so much easier to put the focus from what was being inside of our bodies, since we're so relaxed and we're so calm and we're so focused, to out of our body. That's why it's used in like astral travel, and that's why it's believed to help you communicate with spirits. Plus, again, the smell of it and the texture of it is as close to a soil as you're going to get besides actual soil. And because soil is neutralizing, and since it looks and smells so much like soil, it's believed to absorb onto like negative energies and hold on to it and neutralize it, like how you would with regular soil. The other one that people would commonly mix in with just regular soil is valerian root. You know, they call it like nature's Valium, but hate to break it to you, Valium doesn't actually contain any valerian root. That's just a rumor. It actually does not contain valerian root. The valerian root lets you like sleep like the dead. Again, that same calm, grounding atmosphere and aspect that it has. Again, because of that earth element, because of that grounding, because again, we're connected to the root, we're connected to the earth where the bodies are. But also to go from that state of being grounded to being so at ease and to dream with it, again, traveling to the astral plane, it's known as graveyard dust, not graveyard dirt. So some people work with this with cremation. But these herbs, because of their correspondences, would be mixed in with regular soil and be sold as graveyard dirt. That way no graves or cemeteries are being harmed in the process. So if you buy any from stores, unless it like says what cemetery goes to or anything along those lines, give it a smell and see what it actually smells like. Editing Crystal popping in real quick, saying that I forgot to mention gopher dust in its entirety. Gopher dust is normally highly toxic to the touch, so if you do work with it, I would definitely recommend using gloves and try not to breathe it in because of how toxic and dangerous it is. But anyway, gopher dust is also used as cemetery dirt or graveyard dirt, or it's called or referred to as cemetery and or graveyard dirt. Okay, I forgot to mention that. There's more on that, but like I already said so much in this video and it was so much back and forth. Alright, go back to the video. I forgot where I was in this, but I had to add that in. Okay, good night. Now, let's kind of touch on if you yourself wanted to collect graveyard dirt or cemetery dirt and how you would use it before we go to like tombstone identification and all that stuff. So there's a lot of folkloric and traditional ways to collect graveyard dirt or cemetery dirt. Everyone's like, is there a difference? You know, because one has a church and it's like hollowed ground. And if you're working on a spell that requires consecrated ground and you feel more comfortable working with an actual graveyard versus a cemetery, then that's fine. But again, a lot of graveyard dirt has to either go and work with the spirits that are either at the cemetery or from a specific grave, which is going to influence the dirt of the magic. Again, I personally don't recommend just taking dirt from people's graves unless they're like from your family or like you know them, or they're like really retired lonely graves, and then you're leaving offerings there and you sit there and you kind of build a relationship. But I'm giving you this information just so you're not just sitting there and just taking a shovel or just wanting to go in there and do certain things. I'm going to give you like the folklore aspect, that way you don't, in the folklore aspect, make anyone cranky. I'll leave it at that. I don't know how to word these things because everyone has a different belief and I want to keep it to everybody's belief, but also make sure that there's like respect going through, if that makes any sense. Not that I'm not saying that any of you guys are disrespectful. There's sometimes we do things without realizing what we're doing is bad. Like me as a teenager, one time in Salem, I was like laying across the headstones to be like the emo goth pics of like the early 2000s. I think I have it somewhere. My friend's little sister found it in one of their Salem trips and tagged me in it like 10 years ago or so. I'll put it up. But you know, using someone as like a photo prop, that's not good. That's not respect. Even I did it. But the main things that you will need is a head covering. Protect yourself from the spirits. It's also seen as a sign of respect in some other traditions as well. So the head covering for respect, again, seen as respectful for a bunch of different traditions. Each one has a different reason as to why it's considered respectful. But for like the protection aspect of it is to not let anything be trapped in you. Not to let anything enter. It's believed in a lot of spiritual aspects that the biggest portal in the human body into which something can enter in is actually through the head. But it's in the back of the head. Right with that knot, we go for like your head scarf or your head covering. It's that, like that nerve ring where your skull meets your neck, that little circle right there, that is believed to be like the biggest spiritual portal on your body in a lot of spiritual beliefs. I'm not saying that's my belief or your belief, I'm just putting that out there as to why that is considered to be protection, just so you, I'm not just saying, put something on your head for protection and you're just taking, got it, alright, I understand why, because you don't unless I actually explain it to you, and that would be really crappy of me just saying, do this for protection, but not explaining why you would need to do that for protection, and then we're going to move on to what the protection is actually from. A lot of people will take their headscarves and put different types of waters on them, or different types of oils on them. Normally it's something that relates with them in their beliefs for protection. Some people do holy water, some people do rue water, some people do Florida water, some people do orange blossom water, or some people will use certain colors, some people will use white, some people will use black, some people will use red. All because it means something significant to them. White would be like purity, black would be mourning, or from protection, the color of protection to keep the spirits away. Some would wear red because red for a lot of people is the color of life. It's the color of blood. Therefore, putting symbolism that you are a living, walking person, I mean, like, obviously, but still, you know what I mean, for the sake of this. But a living, walking person coming in to actively communicate with them. And all these things are protection to keep any spirits from either following you, reading your mind in some beliefs, or entering your body in other beliefs. That's why the word protection is so vague. They just say protection. But besides your head covering and your offering, some people will leave a cup of tea out or pour some tea onto the ground. Some people will bring alcohol for the spirits. Again, these are all different types of beliefs. I'm just leaving a very vast catalog. Some people will bring herbs. Some people will bring books with them and read. Some people will bring music. Some people will leave food. Some people will bring a crystal or two. But whatever is going to be your offering. Then, this is like through almost every single belief, but you need to have some change on you. And that is to pay the ferryman, that is to pay the gatekeeper, that is to pay the guardian spirit, or just paying your toll in general when working with a cemetery or a graveyard. That one is almost like universal in all of them. Some of them, they just don't do that at all, but for cultures that do and beliefs that do work with the guardian, the gatekeeper, the ferryman, the whole shebang of it, it's always like change in money. And then you want a little spoon to gather your dirt. You don't want to bring a shovel. You want to bring like a spoon, not a shovel, and a little container to put your dirt in. Now, when you get to the cemetery, make sure your head's already wrapped up, if that is your belief, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you're going to try to do, if that's just what feels natural to you, or that what feels comfortable for you to, have your head covered, you can. But make sure that your head is covered right before you're going to go in. And then most people would leave their coins at the entrance of the cemetery. Some people leave one at the entrance and all the others around the corners, like the cardinal points of the cemetery. Some will leave one at the entrance of the cemetery, then they'll walk around the whole cemetery and try and find the oldest tombstone. Sorry if I keep looking all over. I keep forgetting where my lens is because I have a giant light in my face. But when you find the oldest grave in the cemetery, that one is considered to be like the guardian spirit. Again, for most beliefs. Some see this as the gatekeeper instead, and the gatekeeper is the oldest spirit. But they'll look through all the headstones, find the oldest grave, and then leave the offering there, and then, whisper the intention to the guardian spirit. And if the guardian spirit is okay with them coming into the cemetery and taking dirt from anywhere on the property, they'll give them like a sign sometimes, or sometimes people just state the intention. Some people do this at the gate of it. Again, it's what feels comfortable to the individual. And then they'll try to select their grave or take some dirt at the entranceway or at the far corner of the cemetery and then leave their offering. Now, for cemetery dirt, graveyard dirt, it is believed that dirt collected from certain people will have different properties, like dirt collected from a doctor's grave will have healing properties. This is inserting the reminder here that magical advice is not medical advice. I'm just explaining things from a folklore perspective and what people already talk about in the witchcraft community. I'm just trying to explain it as much detail as I can. I'm not telling you to cure yourself taking dirt from a doctor's grave. Just putting that out there. Or dirt from a policeman would be like protection. Dirt from a couple in love would be used for like love magic. Or like dirt from a thief or a murderer would be used for like baneful magic. There is that belief too where some people will seek out these specific graves to get that specific dirt to use for their spell. Again, I personally don't do that if I'm using dirt magic. If I feel like I need protection, I'm going to go grab dirt from the police station. If I felt like I needed dirt from a police officer. If I needed to do any type of justice working, I would collect dirt from a courthouse. If I needed dirt for cleansing, I would take dirt from a laundromat. I was doing something baneful and I wanted someone to feel anxiety and not sure how they were feeling and go through different feelings, I would take dirt from a casino. I also use casino dirt in like my karmic workings too, because you're always taking a chance. But anyway, that being said, I do take dirt from my mother's headstone because that was my mom. And I do use that for my protection spells. There's always little quartz in the dirt. And she must have knew I was going to love stones and crystals because, like, hello, look at what my name is. So she would always find rocks and give them to me or point out rocks to me all the time. So when I go to her headstone, I take a little bit of the dirt. And, like, in the little spoonful that I find, there's always a crystal. And I always find a 4-leaf clover at her headstone. I have a whole book of them pressed. Every single time I go there, I always find one. So since she is my mother and a member of my family, I would just take a little bit from her headstone for when I feel like I need comforting energy. Now, I personally, if you were to take any dirt from a cemetery, I would announce myself to everyone there. This is like how I would do it and how I do it once I do take them sometimes from entranceways. So I would announce myself to everyone who's there, walk around, try to get to know, try and read some of the headstones. As a teenager, I hung out a lot in cemeteries. A lot. And I still do now, but I would be in cemeteries way more than I would be doing anything else. But here in New England, we have what's called garden cemeteries. So garden cemeteries were actually like the first national parks. Like, how cool is that? People would go there to picnic and like hang out because the cemeteries that we have are beautiful. I think the first one was in Massachusetts, but like we have so many garden cemeteries. And my favorite one that I love, that I spent so much time in, is a garden cemetery. There's a quick clip of it in one of my shorts. It's like Life of a Witch. There's like a quick clip of me going to my favorite spot underneath this giant weeping beech tree. Oh. It's a couple that's buried underneath there, and I would read to them and stuff like that, and I would pour out my tea to them. I personally don't really do that lot of workings in cemeteries. There's only 2 cemeteries that I do any type of workings in, because I don't know everybody's belief, you know what I mean? You're entering someone's space where, like, their body is. Some people don't believe that cemeteries are haunted, because why would someone want to hang out where their dead body is when they want to go see their loved ones or hang out in a nice space? Some people are under the belief that if someone is at where someone's body is, that the spirit is automatically going to be drawn there. So there are a few different beliefs when it comes to headstones and tombstones. I'm not trying to, speculate and assume what your belief is. I'm just, again, trying to explain all aspects and trying to be fair that way. But I personally, there's only two cemeteries that I do any type of workings in. And those are normally guidance workings. I'm going to be completely honest. They're just guidance. They're cemeteries that I have a very strong relationship and bond with, because it's been like decades of me going to these cemeteries. I was already in my witchcraft practice, and like one of them I was like learning my witchcraft practice and like getting into it. So like we've been through it, me in this cemetery. That sounds so weird to say, but normally that's when I'm like performing something to asking for very specific signs. If I'm ever feeling like lost on something, or I'm feeling like overwhelmed and I'm kind of like, I need someone else's perspective, I'm kind of here to like not petition, but just trying to see like what your thoughts are on something. That's where I would go to do that type of working. Some people do bury curses in cemeteries. I personally wouldn't. Well, actually, I've thought about it for certain things. I haven't. No, I have. Okay, no, that's a lie. That is a lie. I have buried stuff in a cemetery. I have. I can't go into the details about it, but I have buried something in a cemetery. Some people, they would try to find like where the hand would be above someone in a cemetery, especially in like older cemeteries where they would be buried. And if they had something like a poppet, like a curse poppet or a mojo bag or a gree bag, they would like bury it in the hand or towards where the hand would be of that person that is buried there. Normally, these are done for people who are like murderers or just grumpy people or an ancestor, but they would bury something towards where the hand would be. Sometimes it's even as simple as a crystal. And sometimes they might give someone a corresponding crystal. That way the spell is tethered through law of contagion. I'm not saying everyone who gives you a crystal that it's tied to some person in a cemetery. That's not what I'm saying. Just giving examples of things. Some people bury things at the gate of the cemetery. Some people bury things in the back corner of the cemetery. Some, if there's stone walls, they'll stick little petition papers in the stone walls. There's a lot of different ways that people work with and use cemeteries. And then when you're done collecting your dirt, when you leave, make sure you thank the spirits, you thank everybody, you leave your offerings, you let them know how appreciative you are, especially if they, like, you know, if you had asked for a sign and, you know, the spirit had let you know that it was okay. Some people don't ask the spirits of the grave that they're digging for signs. They'll just take a little bit and announce it to the spirit. But a lot of people will ask, you know, to see if it's okay and go with their gut intuition. Because if you don't know if it's like a yes, that means a no. If you're asking a spirit, like, can I take this? And then you're like waiting and you're like, I don't know how I feel. That means no. After you thank all the spirits, and then when you leave, you could pour another libation, or like if you have like a drink or a liquid, that means pouring some out for devotional purposes. In other words, to the spirits, to the gatekeeper, to the ferryman, to the guardian, whatever it is in your belief or whatever feels right to you. And then you give your thanks. And then once you leave and once you crossed over the threshold for the cemetery, that's when you would take off your head covering if you chose to wear one. Or wear one, not wear one, you know what I mean? So now that you have your cemetery dirt, what can you do with it? Cemetery dirt is completely universal. It could be used in anything from love magic to protection to curses to hexes to jinxes to binding to banishing to luck. It just depends on where it was picked up from. Or if you have the version that has like patchouli in it and it's just regular soil, that is more of a protective blend. So if you have that protective blend, did I say bland? Whatever, you know what I mean. If you have that protective blend, or even with like the valerian root, then you could add in your other herbs to change like the components of it. If you know where the dirt was collected, that's going to let you know what you can use it for. If you don't know, you can A, try and do some divination over it, like maybe with like some tarot cards, and try and get like a reading of the energy of the dirt if you wanted to. B, mix in your own herbs with it, or maybe your own crystals to charge the dirt with your intent for it. C, put it in a cool jar and put it up on your shelf just so you have it. Or D, dispose of it at a crossroads but in an area facing east, and then go and collect your own. And I say east that way the dirt and the energy and the spirits of it will be greeted by the rising sun. It's common in a lot of beliefs, not just Abrahamic beliefs, but that the soul is greeted with the rising sun. Now, headstones, most of them, like here in New England, will have this shape that is on my shirt right here. It's my little glow-in-the-dark ghost. And that is because it is shaped like a headboard, like for a bed. I almost said shaped like a headstone. It is a headstone. But it's supposed to be symbolic of a bed, especially when you see that type of shape, because now this is going to be their final resting place. Obviously mine has, you know, winged death coming on wings, so it's not like the best symbolism for that, but it's to symbolize being in their final resting place. Now, in some places, the headstones aren't even where the head of the body is. Sometimes it's actually at their feet. That's very common here in New England. I'm not sure if it's common in other places, but a lot of the places, especially when they have graveyards, everything is east facing. Their feet will be facing the east. That way when they rise, and their head will be facing the west. So when they rise, they'll be rising to meet the rising sun. And that's why when you see like a lot of couples, like husband and wife, when they're buried, the wife is always buried on the left side of the husband. That way it's on the side closest to his heart. So it's weird when you think about like how sympathetic magic and law of contagion is connected to so many things, because it was believed through this heart tether that the wife wouldn't be left behind, that the wife would be able to follow the husband into heaven, in their belief for like a lot of these cemeteries, because of that connection, and the wife is on that side. It's kind of cool when you think about it. Now, the cemetery that I want to go to film this, they have a lot of older tombstones and headstones. And I wanted to go to like symbolism behind all the headstone meanings. That way when you look at a headstone, you can see it and know what it means and like what type of person is buried there. Especially like if you were going to collect your own graveyard dirt, and some of them, they just have pictures on the headstones. At least around my area. I don't know if that's true everywhere else, so this might not apply to you. But a lot of ours will just be like a certain symbol on a headstone. So I wanted to point those out and give the meanings of them. I'm not there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up pictures, because I don't even think I have any footage on my phone. I should have took some footage when I was at the art festival in the cemetery of the headstones. That way I know what I had. That way I could have talked about it. But I'm going to put up some images of what you would see on headstones now. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to be able to find, so I just don't want to list them off verbally in case if I'm talking about them and I have to edit a whole bunch out and I end up finding ones that I didn't think to mention. So I'm just going to put them up here. Tombstones in themselves have like a lot of like meaning behind them. So like where I live, there's just tons of old cemeteries like everywhere. We have, if you were to even it out, because I think we have over 3,000 cemeteries just in Rhode Island for like the smallest state. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it would equal out to like 78 cemeteries, graveyards, etc. for each town. It's crazy. But anyway, some tombs, like if you had a lamb on it, it meant that it was a child that passed early. And then like a lot of the ones that you'll see here, like if the finger was pointing up, it means that the person lived like a good life, you know, because they were going to go to heaven. But if the finger was pointing down, or there was like a broken pillar on it, it means that the person's life was cut short early. You guys thought I was going to say something else when I was like, finger pointing up, heaven, finger pointing down. No, it just means that their life ended early, especially if there was like broken chain links around it. And then you'll have other ones too, where like the obelisks, like the big giant monuments, those were all just like a money status. So people even still would try to outdo each other, even in graves. The fear of being buried alive led coffin makers to design caskets with an internal chain attached to a bell on the grave. If the person should awake, they would pull the bell and alert the community to their premature burial. Hence the saying, "For whom the bell tolls." And also graveyard shift, because sadly, being buried alive was more common than you would think. So they would have someone, you know, walk in the cemeteries to do the graveyard shift to listen to bells. But here in New England, we still have some old cemeteries that will have the bells, and they have them preserved. Actually, also in New England, I think it's in Vermont. I want to say it's in Vermont. But we have the glass tomb. So there was this man, like Dr. Smith. It sounds too generic to be right, but I'll double check it. I'll put the information, the pictures up right now while I'm talking. But Dr. Smith was so terrified of being buried alive that not only did he have the top half of his casket built out of glass so you could see him, but over the top of his headstone, he was buried in a mound, and he had glass fastened to the top so you could keep looking down on him just to make sure that he was actually, you know, like rotted properly, just because of how common that was. Like, can you imagine how terrifying that is? I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever seen any of those meanings before, but those are the meanings to those headstones. I feel like there was a lot more I wanted to talk about when it came to headstones and cemeteries, but since I'm not in there, I can't think of it. So I feel like this is actually a really bad video, and I was such a rush to get this out for like Halloween and spooky season. But I will say my cemetery and folklore video does have more additional meanings of tombstones, and one of my favorite mentors, no offense to any of my other mentors and teachers that I had in my witch life, but one of my favorite mentors that I was close with, he has since passed away, but he used to do tombstone tours all the time, and he had given me one of his old like tombstone things with like the folklore and the symbolism of like cemeteries and tombstones. And in my cemetery and folklore video, I go over the folklore and superstitions and everything that's found within cemeteries. So it's a fun, cute little video. It's an older video. I didn't have a microphone yet, so hopefully you could hear me, but it goes into detail and it breaks it down, and there's little chapters for each part. So if you just even want to read the chapter list to see what's on there, you can. You don't even have to watch the whole video. But if you want to learn something more, you do have that option. I'm going to link it up somewhere over here real quick, and then I'll also have it tied to the end of this video. But honestly, that's all I could think of for headstones and cemetery and dirt and witchcraft. I know I had so much more. Who knows, maybe one day I'll delete this video and make another one. I feel like this was such a bad video. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, I'm trying to rush because the next video I have is also on mirrors and witchcraft, and that one is an in-depth video. That one is scripted, so that one has a lot in it. So that one will be coming soon. This one was an off the top of my head and on the cusp video. But I hope you're having a good day, night, energy, space, and wherever you are. And I really, truly hope that good things happen to you. Bye!